So let's get right into it. With the first one, we can have a more elaborate answer. It would be probably be nice to have some context for the what is the protect and choose and why is it there? Because well, I could count three people that I don't know if they have the answer to that yet, and it might be a nice refresher also before we start getting into the more complicated questions. So, yeah, why is the protect and choose here? How was it created? What is it for? And what does it do?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Great way to start it. So, protect and choose is an evolution of originally the protect and burn. The protect and the protect and burn. The protect and burn was created as a CHSB utility to make out of CHSB a deflationary token, meaning that over time the total supply of CHSB, which was initially set at a billion units, will continue to decrease, and therefore having a much slower supply, which would in effect have a positive. It's really the opposite of any inflationary token. So, or currency. If you look at the pound or the euro, the dollar, that's very much the opposite, right? We're printing money left, right, and center, which ultimately creates an asymmetric output of monetary units, in this case, fiat currency, to real economic output, which is what we all produce and might be calculated in GDP or in other measures. Ultimately, the equilibrium mechanism between both is price. So if I augment a lot the denominator, which is the one at the bottom, if you guys remember basic math in school, well, the total price will increase, and vice versa if it's deflationary. So that wasn't. I hope that was clear. But what we're trying to say is that with the protect and burn, we gave CHSB utility so that throughout time the total supply of CHSB would decrease, meaning that each individual unit of the token would be worth more, as assuming that demand would remain constant or even increase. So yeah, that was the original utility. Since then, it's evolved a bit. We burnt quite a few million tokens as well. But it is not quite as straightforward, which I think why we're having this SmartTalk today. But originally, that's where it came from.
Cool. Yeah, very clear. So it's more like it's a deflationary tool so that we're able to increase the viscosity of each token, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was the protect and burn at least.
Exactly. So that was the protect and burn. And then the protect and choose came earlier this year, just before I joined, like a month before. And the idea was, in the community-centric spirit of ours, was to go beyond the simple burn mechanism and actually ask our community, ask you guys, whether we should burn, and how much of it, and if we don't burn everything, what else could we do with those tokens? Are there better use cases for them down the line? And we'll get to that in a little bit, because I do have a lot of ideas and a lot of things to pitch you guys, and hopefully have an interactive session all together today. But so we evolved in protect and choose. To be quite frank, it hasn't worked quite as well as we hoped for a whole myriad of reasons, which again I'm going to get into. And so here we are today, after 1 year, looking back as a little retro onto this protect and choose initiative, and I think a lot to learn and a lot to evolve from. So first protect and burn, then protect and choose.
Perfect. And you exactly jumped on my transition. So it's been 1 year of protect and choose, and we've been able to trigger it, I think, once. Could we go a little bit over what you think the good and the bad parts of this are, and what we can establish from that one trigger?
Yeah, so we went on it on the decision was taken in Q1 and was implemented therefore in Q2, which I remember vividly because we did it ourselves, our squad. And to be quite frank with you, is not quite as easy, because when you do the protect and choose, you obviously want to put forward really good ideas so that the community can be happy about other choices than burning, and give good reasons why we wouldn't burn, because obviously burning is the preferred choice. So if we don't burn, it needs to be a bloody good reason, in good English, to not burn it. But for different reasons, it is not quite as easy at the moment to give super cool reasons, and they exist. In DeFi, we could do a lot of cool stuff with CHSB, but a few things need to happen for us to actually be able to do that. And hopefully I'll be able to explain a bit later why and how. but it meant that the options we put forward are not necessarily options that we were particularly proud of, and we thought there are many better options, but we just weren't able to put them forward. So ultimately, it resulted in the Protect and Choose being. I understand the feeling of the community that thought, well, why are we doing this? We could just burn. It's just better doing it that way. And that feedback was taken and even shared by us internally. So we definitely need to evolve it, and there's a few steps we need to take to make it happen. And then in Q3, we were in depth of the bear market, which we're still at today, and we established a strategy for protect and choose, during the bear market. Because what you need to know is that where the protect and choose or protect and burn comes from is 20% of our revenues being allocated in a pool, which we then decide to buy back with CHSB and then burn that CHSB or do something else with. But as you can imagine, in a bear market, the opportunity cost of investing that money is really high, because the truth is we're not swimming in money. We're doing well comparative to other companies that went under, because we had some really good treasury management and we have done things properly over the years. And so we know that we can survive. We have a good runway, and we'll be fine. But it doesn't mean that we can just spend money like this. And so the outlook needs to be very different in a bear market than in a bull market. If we were to just spend all that pool and not consider other options, we would be as bad as everybody else. So we need to remain conservative in that degree with our money. And so therefore we apply the bear market strategy, which was like, we're going to defend a certain peg of CHSB against Bitcoin. And as long as we don't go under that, there's no really a need for us to do the protect and burn, because it won't have a good effect anyway on the price, because everybody's in a bear market. And so you might see a little momentary pump for 5 minutes, and then it'll go straight back down, which is what we saw recurrently when we tested it. And so, yeah, that's a bit the recap of the year. And now we are here Q4, or end of Q4, start of Q1 23.
Amazing. Thanks for the explanation. It was very clear, very concise, very enjoyable. I really don't have to do much, which is super nice. Going back on the number of ideas and on the fact that we weren't necessarily proud of everything that we pitched for the last Protect and Choose, Julien has asked if it was possible for the community to pitch ideas, and if so, is there a medium for them to be able to do that? And if not, why?
Yeah, so in this case, we come already to the future of Protect and Choose and the future of CHSB, really. Mm-hmm. The reason why we haven't allowed the community to pitch ideas, and I think we even did it for a while, but we realized that there's quite a bit of information asymmetry regarding what CHSB is and what it needs to be in the future for us to make it evolve throughout time and make it be at the forefront of the next bull market, which we're working really hard on. So for that, I need to give you a bit of context about CHSB. CHSB, the smart contract, was created in 2017, which is online. It's fully transparent. You can see the CHSB smart contract. But the truth is that it's limiting in certain degrees on DeFi, because it was created at the very inception before the whole 2017 bull market. It's really early days, and since then the industry has evolved a lot. ERC20 has had, the token standard on Ethereum for everybody. Has evolved as well throughout time. And so for us, it's now coming a moment where we're looking at evolving the smart contract of CHSB into something much more powerful. And at that point, a whole new avenue of possibilities open for CHSB, from different listings, DeFi opportunities, and then all of a sudden it gets super, super exciting. And this is what we're working on right now. This is not something that's been disclosed before, and I'm actually not sure how much I can say about it, but I can tell you that whilst we're doing this fundraise and it seems like everybody's focused on equity and shares, we are working like maniacs in the background to make CHSB the single best token for the next bull market. That when the money arrives and when the momentum keeps coming again, we can capitalize on it like never before. And so for that, it means that we need to do a few steps before to make the smart contract evolve. And from then on forward, I think we can have a much more eye-to-eye conversation about what CHSB can be, and have the community suggest different possibilities with it. But what I'm trying to say is that 2023 is going to be a massive year for CHSB. We have some big plans in the backlog. that I have the chance to be working on myself with the team. So I can tell you from first hand that we're looking at revamping CHSB and giving it a brand new, not only paint but brand new chassis altogether, and make it evolve with the industry as the industry progresses.
I knew we were going to go over the fundraising at that point, but it's super bullish to hear you say all of that, and I really like the fact that we're upgrading that contract because it has been. I think Nico Borg mentioned about 6 months ago that we started envisioning what it would become. I'm glad to hear that we're working on it right now. It's really cool.
Yeah.
There are some questions related to the marketing of Protect and Choose. So we've talked about the goal of it in the long run, but there's also some doubts whether it is also a short run tool or if it's only long term. And if it's only long term, why are we focusing on short term metrics to decide if we want to trigger it or not?
So
Which is a very tricky questions.
I'll always try and be as honest as I can with you guys. The truth is that Protect and Choose will probably evolve as it is today. It will no longer be the same thing as it is today in 2023 moving forward. As we upgrade the CHSB smart contract, we will look at upgrading the whole mechanisms and add utilities to CHSB as well, which means that we need to look at what worked in the past and what didn't work in the past, notably Protect and Choose, and make it evolve through time. I have a little anecdote to this. I have like this stupid family ring for a reason that's unimportant right now, but inside there's something engraved that always stuck to me from a very little kid, and it's Latin, and it says "Omnium rerum vicissitudo." That's my best Latin, but what it means is change is everything, or everything is change, meaning that you need to continuously adapt. And the moment you stay still is the moment you start dying. And this very same concept applies to CHSB. And so Protect and Choose will no longer be how it is today. There's certainly a long-term intent to keep that kind of nature, the deflationary nature of CHSB. But we need to figure out how it will look like. The truth is also that the impact of the Protect and Burn until now and Protect and Choose has been minimal. Like, I know people, and this might be not popular to say, but again, I'll try to be honest with you guys. I know that some of our strongest community members feel very strong about the burning mechanism as it is today on CHSB. But if you look at price, for it to really have an impact on the price distribution, you'd have to burn a whole lot. I'm talking orders of magnitude more than we would ever be able to burn with the current mechanism. It would take us decades. And look at Binance, look how much they're burning on their token. And even there, it really hasn't it's not that what has an effect on the price. If you just look at the total supply of tokenomics, we have 1 billion tokens. Right now, I don't know how much we burn, but it's a few million. We're so far away from it to have any kind of impact on CHSB. So we do need to think what the long-term strategy is, what the utility should evolve as, and how we can add more utilities to it. The yield is another one which I think we can evolve and make it much, much better. I'm not sure if right now is a good moment to talk about it, although I'm happy to. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are going to come, and whatever the burning mechanism will be, we'll have to have a long-term outlook and a long-term perspective on actually having a positive impact on CHSB.
Your squad definitely has a lot on their plates between the premiums and the CHSB and the launchpad.
Our squad,
yeah.
I'm currently in three squads at the moment. It's intense, I can tell you that much.
I can imagine.
But we're doing good work. Honestly, it's the amount of stuff that we're able to put out and that work and that have a good, it's really, really cool. And I do the least, and it's all the team that works behind it that don't get the praise they deserve.
True. Big shout out to all of these people behind the scenes. I see one that's not on your team, but behind the scenes in here also. So big props to him. You know who you are. There's a nice question about transparency here, asking about the Protect and Choose pool. It's in USDC and yielding somewhere, but is there any transparency on how much has been generated on that and where it's stored? Is it in the Nansen report or anywhere that we can see? Or do you know what's up with that? Or is it maybe we're not?
That's it. That's an excellent question. I'm afraid it's a bit too granular for me. I actually don't know exactly where it's stored. That's something that's,
Yeah, that's treasury
I,
stuff.
yeah, I don't deal with that kind of, luckily, because I'd make a mess of it. Uh, that kind of intricate treasury stuff. You would have to ask a treasury specialist. I really don't know where it's stored. I
We'll
know
see
it's
if we can.
transparently reported and you can see it on a website, but the exact address, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Hmm. There is also a question about the premium status regarding the voting power for the protect and choose. But so if the protect and choose is evolving, then that might become irrelevant. But the way that we're seeing it today, will it matter how many CHSB you're holding for a vote, or do you want to make it matter, but it's not currently possible? What's the view with that? Why does a Genesis Premium with 5,000 CHSB have more voting power than a Pioneer that have 300,000, for example? Just it's a stupid example, but just yeah.
No. It's a very good question, and this is a debate we had a while ago. And I'm happy to ask you guys the question, and please answer yourself. There's two ways of thinking about this. One way is that you should indeed reward the higher premium the more, just because the premiums are the status symbol we have in the app. It's the status of our ecosystem. You know, if I'm Generation or if I'm Genesis, I'm among the top community members. I'm at the very top of the ladder, and everything below is my way to work my way up to Generation or Genesis. The other way of thinking about it is, one person is one voice, like a democracy. Is it really democratic in the way that we're saying, you know, we want to make a community-centric, democratize wealth management and making it fair and community-centric? Is it really fair or community-centric to give Genesis, I think it's 6 times more votes than if you're a normal user, if I'm not wrong, which is a huge discrepancy. We debated it for a while. We decided to keep it as is because there was quite a bit of pushback from some people. But it's certainly a question that we need to address. I'm not sure how relevant it will be in the future. To be frank, no decision has been made as now, and I don't know if there will be decisions about this in the future. So for the moment, it stays as it is. But it's an open question. It's more of an ethical question than really a product question. Happy to hear what you guys think.
I've left a little poll in the SB Coffee text so that if anyone wants to vote, they are able to. Let's see if I have some more questions. Here I do have a few. Proposal for choose option. Buy shares with it, which are collectively held by premium members.
Yeah, we so wanted to do that, but we're not allowed. It's such a shame.
It's
That would
legal?
have been the one. We really worked hard on trying to make this happen, and that would have been the single best protect and choose option there was, because it'd be a win-win for everybody involved. But because shares are a type of security, and it's super regulated, we unfortunately not allowed to do it for legal reasons. But yeah.
I know a company that wouldn't have cared. They're not here anymore, but they would have bought the shares with their own funds.
That's why we cared. We want to
keep... yeah. I mean, we learn from others' mistake as well. The bi-weekly buyback mechanism as something different to protect and choose, and had one of its goals described as re-injection into the ecosystem. Why was giving tokens from the protect and choose pot to loyal holders an option if there was a separate mechanism before? I'm not sure I understand that well.
Yeah, I remember. So this is the option we gave, I think, in Q2, and the one that was voted on by the community, which was to, we spoke for a long time about this kind of hodl bonus, which is really not a trivial matter because the token economics of a hodl bonus are not necessarily straightforward, and it potentially compromises the yield as a whole. So we decided, let's test it and go a step in this direction. And we decided to implement a kind of de facto hodl bonus through the protect and choose, saying that, hey, if you met the certain conditions, which I think it was you hold CHSB for more than a year or you haven't sold for more than a year, I can't really remember what it was. But it was something on those lines. And if you met those conditions, we considered you eligible for the hodl bonus and you got a little bonus. It wasn't really much, but you got something towards it. So that was the idea of that redistribution back then. Again, it was a test. We need to experiment to see what works, what doesn't work. I don't think we necessarily repeat it. It wasn't particularly positive. and the HODL bonus in itself is a whole different debate that we need to look at again as we evolve CHSB. But I think the way to look at the HODL bonus is to incorporate it much more intrinsically in the yield itself. The yield today, the yield 2.0, is great for initial investors because you get a high percentage in your CHSB, but you have very strong diminishing returns on accumulating more CHSB, right? I think something that Juju pointed out a while ago, and he's fully right. The more CHSB I have, the yield really, the less I get proportionally. So my incentive to keep accumulating beyond a certain point gets closer and closer to zero. And so a much more democratic way of doing it, and a much more fair way of doing it, would be to look at individual user actions, which is something that's a recurring theme throughout Facebook anyway, and to make your yield dependent on how good of a borger you are. Now, that's a complicated question because you need to define what is a good borger. But in a nutshell, or very simplified, and I'm oversimplifying, someone who is active on the app every single week, who yields, who is a premium, who tests out the new features, who is an active community member like you guys, should arguably get a higher yield than someone who never ever connects on the Swissbook app and just bought in CHSB once and is there since the dawn of time and doesn't contribute to the system, right? You guys put in a lot of effort. You guys are the very cornerstone of who Swissbook is. So it would be much more meritocratic to give this kind of modular yield, which would allow us to provide really, really insane yields for our top community members like yourselves, and still have a really good manageable average that makes sense on the long-term token economics-wise. And this is where this kind of HODL boost psychology would be incorporated. Again, it's something we're working on. It's super, super exciting. I think it would open a lot of doors, and it'd be by far the single most meritocratic yielding reward system in the entire industry, which is something that I think Swissbook could be very proud of.
That would be dope for sure. Then
Yeah.
I think for the Loyal Borger title, there was some FUD because it was only the criteria were only given after the fact, which is something I don't think people appreciated that much. Would the boost that you are talking about right now be communicated beforehand so that people can try and anticipate? Or is it something that would constantly be reimagined and evolve? Or would it remain as sort of a surprise and you'd get the rate that you deserve?
No. It's something we want to be transparent about it. The truth about the Loyal Borger status in Q2 was that we were all rushed because we had so many things on our plates, and then we had to come up with something for this Protect and Choose. And it's the first time we did it, so we didn't really know which squad was going to do it. It ended up on our plate, but it ended up on our plate far too late, which is why the whole thing was a bit rushed. And then people's ego got a bit in the way that, why am I not Loyal Borger? Even though it was just a way of calling it. We had to give it a name. So maybe we could have chosen a better name, without doubt. But that's one thing. For anything that was going to happen in the future, like the same way that we try to do it now, we always try to give as much notice as we can when allowed, and be as transparent and forthcoming and proactive as possible. So this is certainly something that would not come as a surprise. And let me guess my yield. Would try and make it so that you can really work towards that high yield if it's something that you believe in. And we might adapt the measures because we might not get them all right at the beginning, but we need to listen to community feedback, and then we can fine tune it if we end up going into this specific direction.
Okay, I see a lot of people have been interacting in the chat for the current conversations, which I was not watching. I was watching the other one with the questions. So, if we change the smart contract, are we keeping a max total supply of 1 billion?
Most likely, yes. 99% yes.
Is this recorded? Yes. In the smart contract of CHSB. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, with a pinch of salt. There might be something that I'm not aware of that's completely beyond our side, so that would force us not to do it. But the answer is yes.
Yeah,
very much.
Or except for the burned tokens. Then I guess either those would be reminted and reburned straight away, or they would just not be minted again. I guess
Yeah,
it's.
exactly. There's loads of little intricacies like that,
Mm.
which I don't have the answer to right now, to be honest. But to the best of our abilities, yeah, it'll be as close as we can to one, obviously.
If
In
this,
fact, it will likely be a 1-to-1.
yeah, if the
And
smart.
if not, and if not, sorry, sorry, and if not, you would get it'd be like proportional. If I'm saying an example right now, right? But if we cut, let's say the supply by 10, everybody would get 10 times less. The same time with that, if you multiply the supply by 10, everybody would get 10 times more, right? So the proportion would always be right, whatever. But the easiest is obviously to keep it 1-to-1.
Yeah. There is. Are we staying on Ethereum?
Yes, I don't see why we would change from Ethereum at the moment.
And I think that's slightly catching up. There's Kendo. I don't really see a question. But there is a tricky one saying, why is protect and choose advertised as a utility if it's not being triggered regularly? Which is not very nice.
No, no, it's a fair question, and there's a fair answer to it. We trigger it as much as we can. I think everybody can appreciate the context that we currently in as an industry, with so many projects literally have died, meaning that we are just being more conservative and acknowledge that the short-term burning of a token in or even because triggering the protect and choose would mean that we'd have to burn something. And right now, we just don't feel like it's the best moment to do so, because one, it wouldn't have a long-lasting positive impact on the market. As we've tested this a lot of times with smaller amounts and big amounts, and I think there's even a historical graph where you can see when it worked and when it didn't work. And secondly, we're in a bear market. We need to be, again, conservative on our treasury management. It's what every good company would do, and it's what we are doing. Burning millions of tokens now into the wind in the middle of the bear market just makes close to 0 sense. So it's a fair question, but the answer is very straightforward as well. The moment we can trigger it again, assuming that it's still there in its current form or whatever form it will be in the future, we will do it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting feature, at least because it did become, so the protect and burn was kind of let's say an easy way out. So we'd make the token deflationary. We wouldn't really think about it too much. You could almost have it automatized. I remember though Bastion had to trigger it, but you could almost have it like automatically trigger itself, depending on certain factors. Even if people could speculate over it, it wouldn't be great, etc., etc. But I mean, it's a lot simpler than right now, where you'd have to know a few weeks before. It depends on buybacks. Then you have to get people to vote. You might or might not give more information about certain voting
But
possibilities. Yeah.
Benji, I'll be honest with you, we wouldn't have done a protect and burn either right now. The market condition, it's the same fact. We using revenue right now to buy back CHSB to just burn it straight away is probably the worst kind of treasury management you can do in the middle of the bear market. It just really doesn't make sense. It's for the well-being of the entire project of Swissborg, that we don't do it, and that's having a more long-term perspective on what the utility should be. I think one of the fallacies of the industry that I'm guilty of, the first of all, is that we tend to think very black and white. Like there's but the reality, the real world is anything but black and white. It's always it's always a shade of gray in the middle, and it doesn't mean because like you need to understand the bigger macroeconomic outlook around you to see when a decision makes sense or not. And that's what real intelligence is, and good treasury management is. Blindly applying something and not being subject to change and to adaptation is, again, it's a bad way of living throughout bear markets and cycles. So I fully stand behind the decision of Q3 and Q4. I think it will reap long-term positive effects for the entire ecosystem, as we will have a more secure position for the future.
Now there's a little bit more technical questions that I didn't really understand. Um, Hopping back to the contract of CHSB, if the smart contract of CHSB was to evolve, how would you function around CHSB being bridged to other chains like the Gnosis chain?
Oh, that's an oddly specific question. Honestly, I would have to think about it myself. I don't know. I don't think if talking about bridging now is relevant to the conversation. It would allow us to bridge much easier, which CHSB at the moment has some on-chain limitations, such as many other tokens. But we are looking at putting at the very forefront for any kind of between chain, interchain connectability and interoperability. Pardon me. That's the word I was looking for.
Cool. I can't wait for all of that to evolve and to have a nice blog article explaining everything.
Yeah, it'd be nice one.
There is a question here about having a blog article for the decisions for the protect and choose in Q4 of 2022. Will that be happening?
I think so. We'll try and write it as soon as we can. Probably I'll be writing at some points. It's just that there's a lot on the table and we have to prioritize other stuff. And to be frank, I only had the last few conversations about protect and choose with Jeremy end of last week. So, we discussed about this long and hard. It seems like this was a given from the very beginning, but there was, I can assure you, long debates about what's the best course of action. And data-driven decisions as always. So we'll display all of this in an article very soon, as soon as we can.
Sweet. And this question is a funny and tricky one as well by Kendo, saying that we have 2.5 million in the pot. Why aren't we burning it? Can we explain how the pot is held? Is it CHSB and USDC? We could either burn 10 million CHSB right now, or we could burn 2 million when it's at $1. So why are we waiting?
That's not necessarily how it works, no. So the way it works is we take a certain percentage of our revenue and keep that in a pool for us to then buy back CHSB when the time is right. And then we burn it straight away. We send it to this internationally known burning address that no one has access to. Again, burning 10 million or 2 million or whatever the number is right now makes strictly no sense. Burning, in fact, has no positive impact imminently. It's not like when you burn a token that the price will go up. That's absolutely not the case. All the blockchain records is a transaction to an address that no one has access to. But it's not. This would only have a direct impact if the demand for CHSB would be so great in that acute moment that you'd have to find other CHSB to even accommodate that demand at a higher price. We're not in that scenario, unfortunately, nor is any other token at the moment in the world. So again, it would at best have a momentaneous relief of a few minutes as we hit order books that are a bit higher up, and then there would be the immediate selling pressure again, coming back to equilibrium. The fallacy is to think that we can shift a market equilibrium by just buying back a few million tokens and sustain a higher market equilibrium. That's absolutely not the case. We are not above market forces. So it is not a market manipulation tool, nor was it ever designed to be, nor can it ever be.
Sweet. I think we've answered everything that was on the plate. If anyone has any other pending questions, we have the opportunity to have Danny right here in the SmartTalk, so you can also go a little bit around the protect and choose if you want to talk about something else. How are the funds railed chickens? We don't know, unfortunately. Hopefully someone from the treasury team will be able to elaborate on that, and I'll be able to relay the information here. But right now the two of us don't know exactly the details of how are the funds held? Oh yeah, USDC in a yield, from what I read in the blog articles.
Yeah. I see Kendo putting another, and I try and answer as honest as I can, right? Surely this was known years ago, and it probably was. I think here again, it's just a question of managing expectations. Having a deflationary token is inherently something good, but it's a big difference between thinking that this will propose us to the moon straight away and just having healthy token economics. This is having healthy token economics, but it doesn't mean because we're going to have a burn mechanism that CHSB will go up to $2 and beyond just because of it. The success of CHSB is the combination of all of the things that it embodies, and the biggest one is the value of our community and the Swissborg ecosystem through it. the burning mechanism is a small part to it. And for it to become a top 50 token, as we all hope, we need to do a whole bunch more. And burning itself would never get us there. And again, there might be, you'd really have to burn a lot of tokens for this to be a tangible thing. So it's really a long-term perspective over potentially decades for this to become a slowly but increasingly positive effect on the token. But you would never see it in a single cycle. I hope that answers the question.
Did you see the latest question? I think you answered the
No.
last one perfectly. Any news on when shares on the app?
Yes, we're working on it. So we obviously, everybody who's a partner, and we should call each other partners at this point, are looking forward to the first partners meeting. We have we will have a yearly shareholder meeting, which I'm not sure how it will exist, where it will be. But if you guys have ever seen Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger doing their annual shareholder meeting for Berkshire Hathaway, it probably, I don't know what it will look like. We'll have to ask Sai. I frankly don't know. But it'll be good fun. It'll be like a big community reunion and some sort. To that point, we obviously want to showcase the fact that you are Swissbook partners in the app as soon as we can. And through that, we need to tell you how many shares you have and make you be able to look at them at the app. And eventually, the roadmap for it is that you'll be able to transfer those shares. You'll be able to send the shares to someone else, a bit like a share smart send, which is super, super cool. And no one in the industry has done. It's a complete innovation. It's equity transferability, which is easier said than done. Like, because it's it's a super tight security that's very much regulated. So we're working on that. The first step is to first of all display that you have shares, and then we'll work on the transferability. And ultimately, what we want to create is a secondary market for the shares in the app, meaning that you can buy and sell your shares in real time before we even get IPO'd or public listed on a stock exchange, which you could do anyway, right? But that's the beauty of Web3 and having this really solid infrastructure, is that we can bring all these innovations to a project, meaning that you could potentially cash out earlier, or you can rebuy more shares between funding rounds. It's such a cool mechanism that we're building. Answer is very short. We're working it very tight right now. The engineers actually on it. We scoped out the specs for it earlier today, so it's actively in development, and you'll hopefully see your shares very, very soon in the app.
Nice. Oh, careful with the numbers of very before the soon, because there's a whole chart and it means something different. So be careful. There's like the soon, which is 2 to 3 months, very soon, which is the next month, and then there's very, very soon, which is I think 2 weeks, and then there's green alert, which is a couple of days. I think it's something like that. Someone might be able to shed some light.
It's definitely not green alert or very, very soon, but somewhere between very soon and soon.
Good. Good. Yeah, I love the idea of smart sending shares. I did not know that was possible, and it sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah, so that will take a bit longer. Just by the way, guys, because we need to, like, that's some heavy logic on the back end that needs to be implemented in the ledger. So that's not quite as easy, but we're on it. But you definitely be able to see your shares very soon in the app. That's the idea.
There's still some debate here about the protect and choose. So it seems like we'll have to keep going a little bit on it, clarifying the protect side of it. So the protect and choose is here to stop CHSB from doing the worse than BTC. Can we elaborate a little bit on why it's not being triggered if it does better?
Yeah, no, that's not really accurately true. So, as you may remember, and I only remember vaguely, so I might get the numbers wrong, so fact check me on this, but I think from the best of my memory, in Q3, we need to, again, it's all about context. There's no point saying 3 years ago, this is the BTC strategy we need to keep to it. We need to see what the market does and evolve. In a bear market, as we enter the bear market, we said, okay, our aim is to keep I think it was an 800 sat support level. So that's a 0 dot followed by 5 zeros and 8 Bitcoin level. And whenever we would hit that level or go below that 800 Satoshi level, we would potentially trigger the protect and choose, the protect side, to buy some back and get us back up there. If we felt that it could have actually a good momentum on the price. The really good news is that we haven't touched this level since early September, to the best of my knowledge. Again, please look on TradingView, but I think it was about like the 12th of September, something like this. And in fact, right now we are more than 50% above this level. We are 1,200 something Satoshi, if I'm not mistaken. Meaning that we're very far away from our bear market goal, which is really good, meaning that we have outperformed Bitcoin by 50% or more since September, whatever that date was, the last time we hit 800. So for the entirety of Q4, certainly we have outperformed Bitcoin by 50%, which is remarkable. And we can't expect this to happen every single quarter. But as we now look at the new quarters, and as Bitcoin hopefully might enter slowly a recovery phase, and the bottom's in, that level will adapt, probably higher up, and we'll try and find a long-term strategy that keeps pumping the value of CHSB against Bitcoin in the interest of everybody. I don't know what the strategy would exactly look like. We'll have talks with the investment team, but it'll be updated for sure. But the short answer is we haven't triggered it because we outperformed Bitcoin by a lot, 50% or more.
Cool. Yeah, there was a question I answered earlier about why the protect and choose wasn't held in Bitcoin, and I was guessing it because if we're expecting Bitcoin to crash and not do well, it wouldn't make sense to then buy CHSB with it. But here we're still going over that. Why aren't we using the $2.5 million right now?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So I
I've been repeating.
We tourner autour du pot. Not sure how to translate that one, but we're
steering around the pot.
Yeah, steering around the pot, which might or might not make sense. But to hop on the question about CHSB yield, there is one here. CHSB yield 2.0 was supposed to be thrown out in different stages. Is it still something that's being done at different stages, or is it just in constant evolution now? Because Draz is asking when stage 2 and when is stage 3 planned for.
So I think we need to look beyond the stages of CHSB yield 2.0. I think we're looking at evolving the whole concept and creating a much better yield, as we mentioned earlier. Something again, as we learn from the past endeavors, keep improving. I can't really remember what the phase 2 of the CHSB yield was. I think it was displaying something in app, like really basic UI stuff. This would not have any effect on the mechanism or how much yield you would get. It's trivial stuff compared to the magnitude of the effect that we can have by building out the mechanism itself. So right now, what we're looking at is evolving CHSB into the new bull market at the very latest of the technology, and be able to capitalize as much as we can on the incoming bull market. So I think we look far beyond whatever stage 1, stage 2 could be, and create something much greater and bigger.
That sounds bullish to me. I thought my sound was off, but it's back on. Cool, nice. Yeah, it's because initially it was CHSB yield 2.0 user interface, and then your loyalty bonus. Yeah, so that's now it's just a constant improvement, which is what most of the squads are doing, right? I think Thematics is also. I see Patrick lurking around here, always taking some feedback and screenshotting, asking me for the rights to see certain channels, and yeah, he's very active here. Doman's also been joining the Smart Talks a few times now, gathering feedback, and Danny's been here a few times as well. Just also interacting with you a lot. Actually, I have to say I thank you a lot for that, because you've been also very, very active around the community on Twitter and on Discord.
Yeah, I love you guys. Honestly, the amount of times I laugh from the silly jokes, that it's a great way to. So before I start the day, I usually go to the gym in the morning, and then between the gym and our first meeting, there's like usually a bit of time, and I tend to go look on Twitter, and sometimes I've got like loads of notifications, and I'll go through them, and honestly, it's fantastic. It's seeing you guys and the banter, the jokes between different people is absolutely fantastic. It makes me laugh, and I try and participate as much as I can. But super cool way, that's the joys of working for CHSB really, is that we can interact with you and do this kind of smart talks. because I honestly I learn more from your questions than anything else, because I then question myself and bring that back to the team, and so everything you guys throw at us, it's always super super helpful. And you know, recently as well, you had Romain Springer. Yeah, Julien always has great ideas. Romain Springer comes up with amazing ideas for thematics and God knows what, and we do discuss them internally. Sometimes they're not viable, and it would be a long explanation why they're not viable. But whenever we can and we think it's a good idea, we certainly will implement it.
And also even the memes and the fun stuff that we see. I remember one
Oh,
of
that's the
the
best.
yeah
That's the best.
the last one that was fun was the one with Cyrus, Anthony, and Alex's face swap. The one you didn't really know if you were allowed to talk about it online or not because it wasn't super professional.
Yeah, he Brabra, he recycled it today. I saw and did like meet our founders, and he wrote something outrageous below. Uh, again, I'm not sure if I can interact with that one, but I certainly giggled behind the screen.
Yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to do, but for sure, if it makes you guys laugh, continue doing that stuff. Yeah. Um, the Yield 2.0 and beyond, is that currently in development or just an idea? What's the Yield 2.0 and beyond? Is that what you were
So
talking
that would
about
be
before?
that would be
Yeah.
Yield 3.0.
Mm.
So again, full transparency. The way it looks right now is we're doing the due diligence on that strategy. Again, it's going towards this modular aspect. We've spoken about it with Anthony and Alex Fazell and different stakeholders, but there's quite a long process between an initial idea that's I may have, someone else may have, and then actually implementing it, because the amount of due diligence that you need to do to make sure that it's something that works and that's sustainable in the long term is quite extensive. And the idea, as much as we keep evolving it, the idea is not to throw something new at your face every 2 weeks. That's, if we build something big, like evolving the yield, we really want it to be something that we can build on rather than something that we need to change constantly. So um, I I wouldn't say it's currently being coded. That's not the case. But there's strong due diligence part being made, which often takes much longer than the coding part itself.
Cool. I just managed also to throw out the giveaway bot in the SB Coffee text channel just below Nico Konut's already provided feedback of the SmartTalk. I don't know how he does that, but this guy's
Crazy.
he's a robot.
You absolute hero, Nico Conat. Honestly, I sometimes don't watch the powwows because I don't know if you guys know, but internally we have a powwow in the morning on Tuesdays. And then Sai might throw in something different for the public powwow. We honestly, you never know what's going to come in the public powwow. It might be something completely different. It might be the same. So sometimes I watch it, but frankly, we already spend an hour watching the powwow in the morning, and sometimes I just don't have time to watch it another time in the evening. So I go on Twitter, I look for Nico Conat, I see a beautiful summary in 3 languages, and you know exactly what's up. Uh, Absolute hero. Big shout out to Nico Conat.
And now he's probably going to grab he's going to we're going to finish this call, he's going to grab a glass of water, then there's the countdown on the power, and then he's going to watch that and recap that one as well. It's just insane. I don't know. Is that your job, or did you add it on your CV? Because you could probably type recaps uh, and the whole uh, yeah, everything that's been said in a meeting in seconds. No, it's it's just yeah, just for the we don't even give you any CHSB for that. That's crazy. We have to. We should make a poll. Nico Machine. Can someone make a poll on Twitter asking if Nico Konut should get some extra CHSB? Yeah.
All right, just text Sai directly and be like, hey, bro.
Yeah, I'll DM Sai tonight and I'll ask him if we send Nico Konat some extra CHSB. I think this is, yeah, we've decided this is meritocratic, right? I think to some extent. Let's go if anyone disagrees, except for Nico Konat, he's not allowed to choose if he'll be getting CHSB or not. Okay, settled. Perfect. Nice. Um, yeah, with that said, there's 17 entries on the giveaway bot. That's a pretty nice odds of getting these extra tasty 20 CHSB that will definitely, or at least hopefully, go up in value in the future. We have a couple of minutes remaining. Danny, is there something that you want to say, ask, go over just before we go and watch the powwow?
No, actually, I think we covered quite a lot today, more than I initially thought.
Yeah.
I hope the answers are clear. I understand that not everybody will agree with all of the answers. I respect that. Please trust us that we do the very best always to make the right decision for the entire ecosystem. We can't always have decisions that everybody agrees on, but we do it for the sake of keeping a healthy ecosystem over the long term and keep flourishing throughout time. So um, I said this before in one of the the events we had over the last few weeks. I think it was in Zurich. Someone asked me what it was like to do product at Swissborg, and one of the really cool things of doing product at Swissborg compared to any other companies that instead of just thinking of a product because you see someone else doing it or there's a hype for market, there's generally a fallacy in this world where we are super rational and we see we are on a piece of land, there's water in between us, and then there's another piece of land across the river or whatever it might be. And our initial thought is, oh, we need to get across, we're going to build a bridge. And so everybody starts building a bridge, and it takes a lot of time, resources, and eventually we build a bridge. But we never stopped to take a step back and turn our heads and see if instead of it being two islands, it was just a peninsula and you could just walk across a few kilometers ahead. And so this is what we do at Swissborg. With that analogy, what I'm trying to say is that every time we build product, we build it with a deeper purpose and a deeper intent behind it. And that is to democratize wealth management and making it fun, fair, community-centric for sure, but also try and build good products in the sense that they do something good for our users. And it's not just a money-making tool or we don't have a business model like other crypto companies that are essentially just a casino. We really try and build something sustainable. And so some decisions might be harder and they might take longer and they might not be immediately understandable, but there's always a very deep level of thinking behind every decision that's taken. So that's a super, super cool aspect at Swissborg. And if I can leave you with that message is that every single squad, whether it's any of the ones I'm dealing with or Domen or Patrick or Andre, everybody else, that kind of decision ethos is deeply embedded in every single team. And that's what ultimately makes the difference and why Swissborg is not only going to survive, but eventually thrive and keep rising in power. I'm convinced of that.
Amazing. Nothing I can add can top that. So with that said, Danny, thank you so much for tuning in and inspiring us all tonight. I think that we've answered loads of questions. Everyone's happy, or at least I hope so. I see 5 people are particularly happy for winning the CHSB. And I definitely hope to see you back here soon enough to talk about the next big things that the CHSB and the other squads that you're in are preparing. Thank you so much. And
absolute pleasure. Thank you, Vincent.
Have a great evening, everyone. Cheers.
Great evening. 2023, just let me finish by this. It's going to be a great year for CHSB. We've got loads of things going. It might be the single biggest year in terms of product development for CHSB.